Hi, folk. Hope you've had a good day. During the pandemic and when we come out of the pandemic, we're going to have to make some serious decisions moving forward. So we need to hear God. And that's what I want to speak about today is hearing God. Luke chapter 1 verse 5 to 22 speaks about Zacharias, Elizabeth, his wife. She's barren. They're both elderly. Zacharias is in the temple. He's rostered on to burn incense, and he's visited by Gabriel that comes straight from the presence of God and is on a personal assignment to Bethlehem to speak to Zacharias. It's a big thing when God speaks to us. It's a big deal, and we need to listen. Unfortunately, Zacharias is full of unbelief, he's full of doubt, and he misses his appointment with God Almighty, which is very, very sad. And unfortunately, he gets set aside, and he has to watch the next 9 months, the events of the next 9 months of his wife falling pregnant and the like, because of his unbelief, and he's struck mute, can't speak. Social media and the internet, constantly we're reading posts which are difficult to authenticate, but the Bible reminds us the grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of the Lord stands forever. If you're not hearing heaven, then you're guessing, and your decisions and choices are relying purely on earthly wisdom. And James in the New Testament reminds us that if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. And prayer, I believe, sensitizes our hearts so we can hear from God clearly. Someone said prayer is simply weakness leaning on omnipotence. So I'd like to pose a quick question. When does God speak? I believe that God speaks when we need to hear his voice. God turning up and speaking to us at pinnacle times in our life. And when heaven's silent, that's when you and I walk by faith. 33 years ago, God spoke to me clearly, and my wife and I had a young family. Both girls were under the age of 7. We moved nearly 2,000 kilometers to another city because we heard God, which has set us up for what we're doing today in our city, in this nation of Australia, and in the nations, because we heard God. In Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1 to 2, it says, God, who at various times and in various ways spoken times past to the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken to us by his Son. When we get a clear word from God, when we hear God, we must not respond like Zechariah. Zechariah said this. He looked for a sign. How shall I know this? He said. Folk, don't put out a fleece. That's clearly an Old Testament response whilst living in a new covenant dispensation. God will, however, confirm his word in 2 or 3 mouths. Zacharias said, he looked to himself. He said, I'm an old man. That's what he said to Gabriel. You see, when Jesus speaks to us through his word, our response should be to look up, not to look in, not into ourselves. Looking at our frailty and our weakness won't build your faith. Zechariah's third response is a great object lesson for us believers today. The very thing he sins with is what immediately is muted, and that's his mouth. Watch your mouth. The words you use build the house that you live in. I'll say that again. The words that you use will build the house that you live in. Words either bring death or they bring life. You and I stand by faith, we walk by faith, we live by faith, and we speak by faith. Let's hear God in this hour. Let not your heart be troubled. God bless.